Of course, we would have loved to have had everyone here in person, but virtual we'll just have to do. But the good news is this is a great virtual party. So my brother Pratt and I really invited each and every one of you here today because we think of you guys as family, and today is really a family celebration of one of our beloved couples. A few folks mentioned that they're new to Zoom, believe it or not. So before I proceed, I'm just going to share some common Zoom etiquette just so that everyone enjoys the experience. First and foremost, please mute your mics to avoid any background noise when you're not speaking. You can use the chat button at the bottom of your screen if you want to share comments to everyone or a particular individual. And most importantly, relax, grab a glass of champagne or your cocktail of your choice, and have some fun. So 10 or 15 years ago, prior to meeting my husband and dating him, I really spent a fair amount of time thinking about my parents' marriage and sort of those desirable attributes that sort of defined who they were as a couple and really helped to guide me in terms of the characteristics that I was looking for in a life partner that ultimately led me to Les. And so over the next 40 minutes, you're going to hear some of those attributes and themes that I believe really capture the essence of my parents and sort of what they mean to each other. Of course, love goes without saying, but those other attributes that are really important. I think about friendship. I think about partnership and collaboration. They're truly sounding boards to one another. I think about their commitment and their pride in the Black community. I think about loyalty and honesty. And then one of my favorites is around humor. So 50 years is an extremely long time. So we only picked a handful of people to speak to sort of talk about some of those moments over the last 50 years. So Mom and Dad, I hope you enjoy the program, and here's to raising a glass as the celebration begins. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to my Aunt Sharon, who was there from the beginning. It was the matron of honor, and she can sort of share those magical moments where it all began 50 years ago today.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Well, great job, Pratt and BJ. I'm delighted to be considered family, be a part of today's activities. It is a great day. It's hard to believe. Two of my former husbands are on the line, and together we didn't come anywhere near 50. So I'm impressed by this major milestone. So, oh, that's a distraction, but that's nice. So at any rate, BJ told me to sort of not do a toast, but sort of talk about how my sense of how the story of Bennie and Flash and how it all began. I'm not a storyteller like Rachel Maddow. I envy that skill, but I'm gonna do it the best way I know how. As I recall, the first time, at least Bennie met Flash, and I think it was the same occasion.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
That's
Am I supposed to, what happened?
You can keep going. I muted them.
Oh, okay. So it was when Flash arrived, I think it was, he was at the top of the stairwell at the Wardman Towers. We were all gathered for what was the high point of the season, what is now considered a very politically incorrect gathering. We were there for the Girlfriends Cotillion. And it was the occasion, I think it was Bennie was a debutante. I think I have that right. And it was an explosion of real elegance. I mean, the women were in exquisite long gowns and the men were attired with white tie, tails, and in walked Flash and Arrington. They had just returned from the Air Force Academy. First time I think Flash had really been, at least that I know of, that we had met him. And he was very smart in his Air Force Academy dress uniform. Arrington was thrilled that we were all together because he was eager for Flash to be a part of this community. And unbeknownst to most of us, he was also eager for Flash to be a part of our family. That Then there was sort of everybody returned to what they were doing. Benny finished up at Howard and then started at IBM. Flash finished up the academy and went off to Paris for his Fulbright, and then he returned. I think he returned just on the eve of when he decided to do his joint degree at Harvard, at the Kennedy School, and at the Law School. And Benny had decided then to leave IBM and also go to Harvard for her MBA. Arrington was thrilled that Flash was back in town, and he was quite determined, unbeknownst to most of us, that Benny and Flash would be a couple. So he had regularly invited them over for dinner. I should add that at some point they were dating, but not one another. Flash was seeing someone, Benny was seeing someone, but that wasn't in any way deterred Arrington. We would gather at dinner and he would regale us with stories of why he thought they were just such a perfect couple. It was a source of embarrassment for me. Up until that point, I'd been a teetotaler. But it was an embarrassing time. But nonetheless, at some point, the flame, connected, and they began to date. And Arrington was truly, truly happy. And so Benny and Flash one day said they were both decided, of course, they were headed off to Harvard. They decided that they really connected beautifully. And so as a result, they decided they would live together once they got to Harvard. Unfortunately for Benny, that's when I stepped in. Unfortunately for Benny, when our mother died, she was 2, I was 4. And our father gathered us out on the front of this apartment building where our grandmother and aunt live. Aunt Amy is with us here. And he told me that we had lost our mother. He'd always be there for us, but we should always be there for each other. And I should take care of my little sister. I took that as seriously as a young Marine, unfortunately for Benny. So when they suggested they were going to live together, I objected ferociously. Of course, they had to make their own decision. So one day they returned, Flash came back, and Benny, we were all gathered at our home at Eastern Avenue. Flash said, Arrington and Sharon, I want you to be the first to know I have asked Benny to marry me. Arrington yelled, Eureka. He ran out of the room. He got a calendar. He started calling a caterer, which is his cousin. He set up the date for them to marry. He came back with all of the particulars, and Benny said, he asked, I haven't answered. So fortunately, as they began to move forward, she did say yes. We all gathered together. Arrington said not to worry, we would get it done. Benny said we don't have a minister lined up. Arrington said not to worry, I'll find a minister. So we all gathered our Eastern Avenue home. We were crowded in. You have a picture of it there. That was one of the easier scenes. It was a wonderful gathering. Unfortunately, the minister that Arrington got at the last minute was only a part-time minister. His regular job was as a mail carrier at the U.S. Postal Office. So he was quite thrown with this program, uncertain of the vows. And so sort of out of like 4 weddings and a funeral, he made a lot of mistakes. So at one point, I do remember he said, are you ready? Are you going to have and to have? At which point Benny said, do you mean have and to hold? At which point, I mean, I was laughing, Gail was laughing, Jaleesa, Tracy was laughing. We were all hilarious. But it was, at the end of the day, one of the most beautiful gatherings I have ever witnessed. It was a beautiful ceremony. And part of it is that there was such a perfection to it. It was perfect in its imperfection. It was perfect in its last minute untidiness. It was perfect because of the collective love and goodwill and friendship in that room. It was such an authentic, wonderful experience. And the beautiful thing is that all that we hope for, all that we yearned for, all of the aspirations we reposed in the union of this beautiful young couple, all of those hopes and dreams were affirmed, realized, and came true. So I am thrilled, Flash, that you did finally ask. And I'm also thrilled that, Bennie, you did finally say yes. So we are blessed that we are all one family to Bennie and Flash.
Thank you, Nana. I'm sure those remarks were beautiful, but I stopped paying attention when you said that you were a teetotaler and tried to figure out how long ago was
I
that.
said up until that point, I lost credibility.
So maybe to tell the other half of this story, Uncle Arrington.
Hello.
Oh, I think you're on mute.
I say to have 70 some people on one call is amazing. I have to admit that I got a little distraction going on here. I've got a companion with me, and I don't know if you can see him or not, but he's here to join in on this. He's next century generation. I was very happy that Flash and Bennie got together. I think that anybody that can do anything for 50 years, the way they've done it, with the strong personalities that are involved, is a very great statement. All that Sharon said is correct. I'm not going to try to elaborate anymore, but I'm just going to, as I am always going to be happy for them and BJ and Pratt and their futures together with their chosen ones, and always the best to everyone. I don't know what else to say. Sharon did a great job of covering it, and just the best to all listening. Be healthy, be safe, and the best to Flash and Bennie always in their relationship.
Thank you, Uncle Arrington. So once they moved to Boston, first for Harvard and then to stay, one of the first people they met was actually Wayne Budd. So we're going to ask Uncle Wayne and Aunt Jackie to share some words here.
Who is that?
Okay. Well, we love Bennie and Flash. There's no question about it. We've had a great relationship with them. We've shared great times. And we're going to start telling you a couple of things that came up starting with about 13 years after they were married. Wayne and I got married and I moved to Boston. And Bennie was the first Boston woman that really welcomed me to the city and invited me to their home in Roxbury for lunch. At the time, and I call these what you'll be hearing about our Wiley moments. And at the time, I had no idea where I was, how to get there, or how I got where I was driving around Boston. It was totally crazy after coming from Manhattan. Anyway, Bennie gave me specific, detailed directions to get to their home for lunch one day. I was coming from Saugus, and she was in Roxbury. And so she gives me these specific directions, goes on and on and on. And then at the end, she said, but don't trust me on the street names. And it's like, oh, okay. I mean, if I have no idea where I'm going and you're telling me how to get there, but then don't trust me on the street names, I was pretty well thrown. And I said, what have I gotten myself into?
Oh, I know that.
It turns out that the directions were absolutely perfect. And from that day forward, Bennie and I have been very close and just love every moment with her. We then went on to a number of other trips and whatnot. And we're just going to highlight our trip to Paris and to New Zealand when they joined us for our 25th anniversary in New Zealand after flying 10 hours coming from God knows where, Fiji or some Thailand. We all learned how huge the South Pacific is. So I'm going to let Wayne talk about those more Wiley moments that we recall often.
Well, first I'd like to say that as Flash, you and Bennie celebrate 50 years of marriage, I celebrate 50 years of 50 great years of friendship with you both, because I met you within a couple months after you moved to Boston back in 1970. And you know, I always found Flash to be an amazing guy, amazing. And let me tell you why I think so. I was always amazed by the fact that this guy who looked like a hippie with this huge afro, a scraggly beard, how did he end up with this beautiful wife to marry? How did he do it? And that blew me away. That blew me away. The Flash and I, of course, as most know, were law partners for a number of years. And it wasn't always smooth sailing. We had some bumps in the road. We had some disappointments. We had some payless paydays. But I'll be honest with you, I couldn't have had a better partner and an even better friend. But you know, most of you on this call today, celebrating the Wileys, know Flash and know Bennie from their time here in the United States. Jackie and I have had the opportunity, as she mentioned, to be with them abroad. And let me just tell you a quick story about what happened to us while we were in Paris. We were having dinner in this restaurant prior to going to a show. And actually, we got to the restaurant a little bit early. We were seated in an area where there was just one other couple in this area where we were going to have dinner. And Flash, being Flash, wanted to engage the other couple. And let me just describe them. The guy was a very plain looking guy, well beyond middle age. His wife was a rather drab looking woman who had well past middle age as well. And so Flash, being Flash, says, "Hey man," he just yelled out to him, "Hey man, don't you know you can be charged with being a pedophile?" And the guy says, "What? You talking to me?" He said, yeah, man, you know, that beautiful young girl, you can get in trouble for being with her. And the guy says, "Why, of all the things to say to me?" And Flash said, "Well, you're from the States, man. Where are you from in the States?" "So I'm from Ohio." "Well, what do you do in Ohio?" "Well, I'm the Attorney General for the state of Ohio." I said, "Oh my God, what are we into now?" And so Flash says, "Oh, you're from the Attorney General, huh? Do you know our former law partner, Tom Riley? He's the Attorney General of Massachusetts." "What? You guys know Tom Riley?" "Oh, yes, we're all great friends. Oh, yeah." And before you knew it, this guy who was so irate a few moments earlier is now sent over drinks for Flash, Bennie, Jackie, and I. I mean, nobody does that but Flash Wiley. Nobody does it. But let me just finish that. We left the restaurant and we went to a show. And we went to one of these girly shows where the dancers were scantily attired, very scantily attired.
And we had second row seats.
First row.
First row seats, okay.
And so, you know, Flash and I have a thing about when we go out, who's going to fall asleep first. Now, here these women are up on the stage. We're sitting there with our wives in the very first row. And within 10, 15 minutes after the show starts, Flash and I are dead asleep. And Jackie tells me that the women performing on the stage were looking down at these two black guys, wondering what the hell were they doing wrong that their act put them to sleep. So we had a great time in Paris. And then, as Jackie mentioned, we went off to
One
Auckland.
other thing with Paris. One of the reasons we went to Paris was because Flash had been, you know, to school there and had lived there. And we thought, well, that would be great because he knows his way around and he'd be able to show us, and he was going to show us this and show us that, and da-da-da. The majority of the things that we were looking forward to enjoying with Flash's memories were gone. All done, because it had been quite a long time before. But we had a great time in any regard.
Jackie mentioned that Flash and Bennie joined us in Auckland, New Zealand. They spent about a week with us in the city of Auckland. And so one day, we're out downtown Auckland, and we see, as you probably know, they have rugby is a big sport in New Zealand. And the national team are called the All Blacks. And they have these memorabilia stores all around the city. So Flash says, "Hey, man, I got to get some of those all black T-shirts, bring them back to my friends." So we go into one of these shops. And Flash finds a jersey that he likes. And the woman says, well, geez, we don't have a dozen of those in stock, but we have a store down the street. Let me call there and see if they'll bring those jerseys over to you. And so she gets on the phone and she's going back and forth. And she seems to be getting nowhere with the person she's talking to at the other store. So Flash says, let me take that phone. He gets on the phone and he says, hey, look. It was a man on the other end, apparently. He said, hey, look, before I have to come over there and kick some ass, you better get those jerseys over here now. The guy said, what? Within a few minutes, here he comes into the store. And it turns out that he was a black guy, not a Maori, but a African New Zealander. And he said, who's the person who wants to kick my ass? And Flash says, hey, man. And I'm starting to look around. I said, we got to find an exit strategy. Here we are down under, and he's starting this fight with this salesperson. And I look around. I'm looking to say, how did we get out of here? And I turn around, and what do I see? Flash and this other guy with their arms around each other, chatting, exchanging war stories and the like. And of course, he gave Flash the jerseys for free. He loved them so much. So that's Flash Wiley. Bennie is a wonderful, wonderful compliment to Flash and he to her. And we're just so proud to be your friends. And we host you and toast you on this wonderful occasion.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, guys. Thank you. There are few couples who my folks are more intimate with, actually, than Tom and Addie Jones. They go way back, really all the way to Indiana. And so we're going to ask Tom and Addie to share some stories.
So I have known Flash, or let me say Fletcher. This is Fletcher Wiley. That's how I know Flash. The Flash thing is, that was fast forwarded to when he got really cool. I was about 17, and my brother and Flash and my cousin were good friends, and they, I just thought they were the coolest people in the world, and so did they. So they hung around together and partied together. And fast forward, then the next kind of iteration of Flash that I remember was my brother was in Washington. I think Flash was in Washington. Flash fancied himself a crooner, and my brother fancied himself a diplomat. And so the diplomat and the crooner to me were like the two wild and crazy guys on Saturday Night Live. And they were following the Ebony Fashion Fair bus around. I just remember that story, and I don't know why, but I do remember that. So after that, so we're still bachelors, but now fast forward to Boston. My brother ends up in Boston. Flash is in Boston. Flash is now married to Bennie. I go to Boston in 1974 after graduate school. Because my brother was there. Well, I'll live in his apartment and look for a job. I got to his apartment. He had a long list of people for me to go see about getting a job because he wanted to be sure that I would be out of his apartment by the time he got back. My first visit was to Fletcher. That was 2 days after I got to Boston. And I said, I'm coming to talk to you about finding a job. And he did one better. He said, I'm going to find you a husband. And he did. And so I met Tom Jones through Bennie and Flash 2 days after I arrived in Boston. And we got married a year later. The Wileys went on our honeymoon with us. We needed pinochle players. And for whatever reason, we all ended up going on our honeymoon. And one of the wonderful honeymoon stories that Flash and Tom will never let Bennie and I forget was Bennie and I, Tom and Flash, sitting out on the beach in the Bahamas. These two Bahamian black guys come by and look at Flash and Tom and say, "Why are you with these girls? The white women are down the beach." So fortunately, they didn't dump us, and here we are 50 and 45 years later. But first, Flash and Tom, Flash doesn't admit to it, but they had a project. Tom thought I was a diamond in the rough, and he needed to take this lump of coal and help her out. So a couple of pieces of advice from Flash was, you need to get rid of that unibrow. That was his advice. And and Tom's advice was, be less like Flash and more like Bennie. And I did that. I said, that's a good idea, because I cannot think of a more gracious, lovely, loving friend than Bennie Wiley. So thank you, Bennie. I would still be a lump of coal somewhere on the street, but I just love the way that you are so kind and giving, and you and Flash have so much room in your lives for so many people. So cheers. Tom doesn't get to talk.
Still on probation.
That's why it's worked out for 45 years, right?
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Tom and Addie are in Connecticut, but our folks really have family all over the country and the world, and I don't think that there's anyone more distant on this call right now than Larkin and Cynthia Arnold. So we'll ask them to share a few good stories.
Can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to say thank you, BJ and Pratt, for inviting us to speak. We feel very honored to join in this celebration. I was just playing golf with my son Sunday, and I was telling him about it. And he said, well, how is it that you and Flash have been friends for almost 40 years? I said, well, we're a lot alike. We're both shy and withdrawn. But seriously, I was thinking about this occasion and thinking about how Flash and I met. You know, in life, you make certain choices that can indelibly determine which way your life is going to be, which school you go to, who you marry, and just important choices. One of the most important choices that I made was when I was chairman of the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Association some, 40 years ago. And we had, a lot of the prominent Black attorneys in the entertainment field, and we were all on the board. And then we said, well, we'll open it up. We need somebody from the audience. So I said, was anybody interested in joining the board? About 5 or 6 hands rose up. And for some reason, out of that group, I guess God ordained it. I chose Flash to be on the board. That was one of the best choices that I've made, not only for Beasler and for what he contributed as being chairman, but as having an opportunity to become friends with he and Bennie. And they have been very instrumental in our life. They brought friends such as the ones that are on this call into our life. They've shared their home with us many years as we have with them. They have the same number of friends out here in Los Angeles that we basically do back there because of the personality and the warmth we have. But along with choosing Flash and what he contributed came the bonus of Bennie. She has been an invaluable friend to my wife, to myself, and have contributed in many ways, helping me on the board. It's just been a very rewarding friendship. We've traveled, like with all the rest of you throughout most of the world. We've been to snorkeling in almost all the Caribbean islands. We just came back from Dubai a couple of years ago. But we've always had experiences when we were in Monte Carlo. I remember, Flash and Benny, you remember this when we were driving up this hill to try to go to this restaurant at the top of Nice, I think it was, overlooking. And the car started sliding back down the hill, and we were all panicked. Flash jumped out, turn this way, turn that way. And we finally and safely were able to make it down the hill. Likewise, when we were in Kabul, we were coming back from, what's this?
San Jose?
No, not San Jose.
Yes.
Santa Cruz, whatever.
Yeah.
City outside of Kabul.
Uh-huh.
Just mine having had a beautiful meal, and on our way back to Kabul into the hotel, and believe it or not, a fire truck come running down, speeding rather, down the hill, down the road, rams into the back of us, almost caves in the trunk into the back seat where Benny and Flash, where Benny and Cynthia were sitting. Drove us for about 2 or 3 blocks, and we all came out of it, alive and fairly well considering. But it's just been a wonderful experience knowing them, sharing our lives with them, knowing their children, them knowing mine, and like I said earlier, enjoying all of you. So we just want to lift our toasts as everybody to Flash and Benny, to our friends, to this wonderful occasion. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. I didn't know I was going to have a chance to talk, but I just want to say how much I love Flash and Benny.
We love you.
Every time we're together, we just laugh. We have the best times. It's just always a good feeling, And I just feel so, sometimes I don't trust people. These are people, you guys are two that I could live the rest of my life with and say you're my best friends. You really are. And like Larkin said, our home is their home in California, and they have us in Boston and Martha's Vineyard, and we really appreciate that. Anyway, toast again.
Thank you.
Well, BJ is not going to let our folks come out and visit you guys unless we get confirmation from Larkin that golf game was socially distanced.
Well, let me tell you this way. But when I hit the ball and when Flash hits the ball, there's a lot of social distance between the two of us.
Well, that's actually a very good segue, because ironically or surprisingly, there hasn't been a lot of trash talking in these remarks so far. And so I can't think of a better time to bring Dwayne Jackson up to speak along with Debbie Jackson. You guys are still muted.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So this is an incredible gathering of friends and family, and I've been very hesitant to be irreverent in this situation. So I won't say that, Flash, you've done a great job in raising my kids, and that I was that guy that Benny was dating when you stepped in and stole her from me. So I'm not going to say any of that, but I do want to say, because my wife told me I don't have a lot of time. We had a moment, we all, the Harvard Business School cage was a very unique place in history and in all of our lives, because every Saturday, guys from all over the city, all over the schools. I was at MIT. Richard was at the law school. Flash, I don't know if you were in your joint degree program. Phil was there, and that's how we all became community. Cambridge was an incredible place in the early 70s. In 1973, friends of ours, Chuck and Paula Collins, told us, because we were classmates, that we had to meet this unique couple. And that couple was Bennie and Flash. And one would have never thought that our lives would consistently converge. So that in 1978, when we bought our first home in Roxbury, we lived down the street from, 5 doors down from Bennie and Flash. Our children have grown up together. We laugh about me coming home one night and Debbie crying, saying, "Do you think that Jeffrey thinks that Bennie is his mother?" Because she was that maternal figure to complement our family, that our kids lived between houses. Jeff, the young bad one, enjoyed going to Bennie's in particular because they could roller skate in the house. So, she gave them a freedom that neither of us would. And our lives have just been incredibly enriched by both Bennie and Flash. Bennie knows she has a very special place in my heart, and Flash knows he's a big pain in my butt, but I love him to death because I'm the only one who can really get under his skin when I talk about my children and my wife, the one that he borrowed in Bennie. So I want to say with deep, regard, respect, love, congratulations for 50 years, Bennie. You're a trooper for, being able to live through this guy. I love him, but he is a pain in my butt. But I look forward to 50 more with you guys. So my wife is kicking me to give it up.
No, I didn't kick him at all. He does all the talking, but that's good because we didn't even share what we were going to say, but he said so much of what I wanted to say. We came to Cambridge for grad school after Hampton University. We were alone. We didn't know anybody, and it was very scary. We met Chuck and Paula, who told us about Bennie and Flash, and I will never forget that moment because Flash, what we heard about you back then was that you were the greatest basketball player of all time. They were saying, I know that's a lie, but I had to say it. And what I heard about Bennie was that there was and Dwayne and I were in MIT, was that there was this incredible Black woman at Harvard Business School when there were hardly any of those at all, either before her or during her time. And I remember just being enamored of the idea of it, of this woman. And then I met Bennie. And she had BJ in her arms, I think. Flash and Dwayne had already known each other from basketball. So that's how far back Bennie and I go. And what I remember from that moment forward is how brilliant she was, but more importantly, how physically beautiful, of course, we all know that, but just the kindest, warmest spirit. And when we moved to Fort Hill together, I felt I had a big sister there. And Bennie has been that for me ever since then. And she knows that. I always tell her, you're my big sister. And I just, I love her. I adore her. And we love the children, and our children are close. And as he said, my Jeffrey still thinks Bennie is really his mother. He spent so much time with her, and she loved it. You guys were role models for us. We were young. We didn't know what we were doing. And there you were, beautiful parents, a beautiful couple building this career, civically engaged. We met in the midst of a Eddie Brooke fundraiser. And I just don't think you have any clue how much we've learned from you and how much you've shown us the way in so many moments when Dwayne and I were trying to figure it all out. And the last thing I will say is Dwayne's story about the children. I don't know if you got it, but Flash has a way of joking. And he would say things to Dwayne. If Dwayne was away, he'd come back and say, Debbie, baby, did you tell Dwayne that you were with me while he was gone? And of course, he'd joke about that. So Dwayne decided to turn it back on him. And he sent him a picture one day of him, Dwayne, BJ, Bennie, and Pratt, and said, I just wanted you to see this picture of me and my family, my wife and my kids. So that's the joke about raising his kids. So that's become the joke with Dwayne, is that Bennie's really his wife and BJ and Pratt are really his kids. I'm going to end this by telling you, though, that the moral of that story is when it comes to Bennie, Flash doesn't like that. He loves him some Bennie, and he does not like those jokes, so he can dish it out, but on that front, he cannot take it. I told Dwayne one day, I said, did you notice Flash wasn't laughing when he said that?
Yeah.
He was laughing when he was talking about me being with him while you were out of town, but not when you talked about his Bennie. So You love you some Benny. I remember you singing My Girl to her from the stage. And Benny and Flash, Pratt and Wiley, we love you guys. You're our family. We lived together for 12 years on Fort Hill trying to make a community together. So thank you so much for just being in our lives, and for also, like so many others have said, introducing us to so many other people who are on this call who are now friends. So we love you guys.
Oh, we love
Toast
you
to
guys too.
Cheers.
And I love the theme of Little Sisters. I can't think of another better segue than to Gabby, who I know my mom also thinks of as a little sister here.
Yeah. So gosh, it is such a joy to be part of this beautiful celebration. Thank you, Pratt and BJ, for organizing us all. Yeah, so my journey with Flash and Bennie began almost 30 years ago, and it was at a lunch with Bennie. And I don't know if it's possible to have love at first sight in friendship, but that's what happened to me. I like literally fell in love with this woman. And so who knew that it would then be the beginning of a journey with her. I was so fortunate to be able to support her partnership and be part of that family. But, even more so was that it was the beginning of me being part of the Wiley family. And that has truly been a blessing in my life. And so, Bennie is the godmother of my daughter, Izzy, who is one of the 70 people on this call somewhere. But she is also kind of like Debbie. She's the closest thing to a big sister I've ever had for the last 30 years, which is just about half of my life. So it's really been a blessing. And my big sister has taught me so much about love and family and partnership, and not just the partnership, which was fun, but about the amazing and beautiful one that she's had with Flash for so many years. And she's just still trying to get that right. I think I must be a slow learner, but it is their marriage above all that really and truly inspires me. Their love and friendship and the deep affection that they have for one another has always been so beautiful, as so many of you all have already said, and I know there'll be more to say. So I wanted to call out and make a toast specifically to something that's always struck me, which is their chemistry. So I remember it was like 4 or 5 years ago here on the vineyard, and I walked into their house, and Bennie was sitting on Flash's lap. And I was like, man, they have been together for 45 years and they are still really seriously into each other. And yeah, so it's no secret that Flash has always thought, it had been appreciative of how hot his gorgeous wife is, but it's just been something I thought like, wow, I really, that, and so much more. But that they have that is something I just think is really pretty spectacular. So toast to you all. And I wanted to share a short quote that I read from Maya Angelou on love that I thought was appropriate. Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles. It leaps fences. It penetrates walls to arrive at its destination, full of hope. So anyway, Flash and Bennie, you give us all hope in the miracle that is the joy and the promise of the true and everlasting love that you two share. And we love you both so much. So happy 50th. We love you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so very much.
That was beautiful. Gabby, thank you for talking about chemistry. And it's also a perfect segue to the physician on the program with Dr. Tony Cole and his wife, Robin.
Well, thank you guys. Pratt and BJ, thank you for letting us celebrate and share in the love in this wonderful, wonderful program. We all know that, I want to talk about Flash and Bennie and then the two of them, and then Robin wants to say something. We all know how humorous and funny Flash is and how eloquent he is with all the big words he uses all the time. But what we may not all know is what a wonderful writer Flash is. And in a way, the words, as he's written them, just lift off the page and you can almost feel them dancing in the air as if they were straight from his heart to the reader's heart. And over the years, he sent us so many wonderful pieces, including one which described how he met, fell in love with, and married Bennie. And that piece, as indelible as it is, has inspired me ever since, with the love and the laughter and the deep meaning of finding your life partner. And as has already been said, we know he loves him some Bennie. And that comes through in everything that he does, and even in the words that related that particular story that I will never forget. And then for Bennie, it's all been said: her poise, her grace, her smarts, that piercing intellect, and they all describe the woman that Robin and I love so dearly. But what has not been said is that Bennie has been one of the most consequential people in my life. For the last nearly 30 years, I have not made an important major life decision without talking to Bennie. She has been a part of advising me. We've looked at things, torn them apart, and somehow we always landed in the right spot because of her impeccable wisdom. And she has been a mentor for me, and probably the most important one in my life. So it's actually a little uncanny. It's like going to the great Oracle of Delphi, because she always knew the right and the wise thing to say. So to the two of you, you have inspired us, you've awed us, you've wowed us, and most importantly, you've set an example for what Black love looks like that was really worthy of adoration and emulation. And I love you guys. Robin loves you guys. I'm going to let Robin say her piece.
So Bennie and Flash, you two are simply the best, trusted friends and role models. When we came to Boston in our 20s, I'm not going to say how many years ago, but quite a while ago, Bennie became Tony's trusted mentor, his sounding board, his wily friend that helped him to navigate the world and to help him with the complexities of making life decisions and career decisions. When we thought about how we wanted to show up in the world as a couple, you two were a part of our vision board. An elegant, wise, lighthearted, funny, loving, and giving couple. You show so much care for our community. You lift us all up. You've been great stewards to all of us, an example of excellence. Thank you for all of your love all these many years, and thank you, BJ and Pratt, for sharing them with us. We love you so very much.
We love you guys.
Love you back.
We love you guys.
Cheers.
Dude. And can we just all acknowledge how sharp Tony looks in those glasses?
I bought him for tonight.
Good. Edward, you ready? Are you representing eyewear as nice as Tony's?
Never. I'm always like a step behind Tony, but that's all right because he's so far forward that I'm okay. So everyone has said some really wonderful, wonderful words, and I want to share a little bit of that, but I want to carry on with a theme since closing a hidden secret, and that hidden secret is I am that love child of Dwayne and Bennie, really, which is what Sharon referred to as Bennie's hesitation in accepting Flash's wedding invitation. So, you know, Dwayne, the fact that you put that out there, you know, we all know how much Bennie loves you. Even the kids, we all know where we fall in that ranking. But on a very serious note, it's appropriate that Gabby and Tony spoke first. The three of us really were the extension of the Wiley children and really had the benefit not only of Bennie, but really the benefit of Flash. And that's one of the things that I admire most about Flash is he is so secure in himself, but is so generous with his family, with his wife, and with himself. in terms of welcoming all. So if you think back for Gabby, Tony, and I, in 1990, Flash ended up adopting a whole bunch of needy, eager, ambitious Black folks.
You are
And
so right.
he did it with such flash. The name is appropriate. But he
That is so right, Edward. Oh,
right, Tony?
right.
Right,
Oh, you
Gabby?
got it.
In the
Yeah.
house. We were in the house. Furthermore, Gabby and I had the pleasure of sharing office space with Bennie at the partnership at my old firm, Isaacson Miller. So we really were, and to make things further confusing, both Gabby and I were green with an E. So we were all destined to be family. I was the added child that stayed at home. Gabby and Tony left Boston for greater and better things, and I remained with Bennie and Flash. So when they transitioned, even with their own blood children, with Pratt and BJ moving on, I was that. Okay, so
This is
I was
trash
checking
talk.
on Bennie, checking on Flash. What exactly?
This is
I
trash.
was steady. But I think it's really important, and BJ, you kind of highlighted as it relates to looking at your parents, as many of us have done, what makes that marriage tick. And you talk about respect, honor, laughter, and clearly love. But I think sometimes some things get lost. You know, for Flash, we all know, and I think Sharon made reference to it, right? He is still going, wow, how did I pull this? So he owes huge, debt of gratitude to Arrington. But the truth of the matter is, he's such a good person. He knows he has found another good person. And so he is very grateful and thankful. And, to his credit, he's like, yes, thank you. But I think what sometimes gets lost is the other way around. Yes, Bennie is attractive, both intellectually and physically. She's a nurturer, but she's also a very, very good judge of character. And what I have seen over the years, very early on, is the amount of love and respect that she has for her husband, his mind, his intellect, his humor. Now, we all know sometimes she worries what he might say or do, but we also know it's always coming from a good place, because what matters to Bennie and to Flash is authenticity. It is about bringing your true self to whatever you're doing. And I think Tony made reference, Black people. It's the idea of supporting, acknowledging, holding, and lifting up. They both do it with one another. They do it with their children, both blood and not, and all of their friends. And you've heard some of that theme. So I really just want to acknowledge the love. Gabby, you said it, the fact that Bennie, was sitting on Flash's lap. We know the last few years, they've been some challenging years. Flash has been very clear. The only person he wants taking care of him is his wife, Bennie. Can you blame him? Right? She smells good, she looks good, she sounds good, all that sort of stuff. And the flip side is, she only wants to be that one taking care of her man for who he is and what he represents. So for all of you couples that are still couples, Gabby, I'm right there with you, girl. So don't, you got company. But for all of you that are figuring it out, one of the things that I learned from both Bennie and Flash, because like Tony, every life decision I've talked with them, never judge, right? Your relationship is your relationship. You figure it out. And it's imperfect. That's what love is. It isn't. And so really, it is an honor to be part of the Wiley family. I'd be remiss. I have my daughter, Nicole, here, and Gavin is one of the 70 plus people on the screen. They are the godparents to my kids. They have done all the college applications, business school applications. BJ and Pratt are younger siblings. They are just loving people. And I wish you guys nothing but the best. It's an honor to be part of your family. Many, 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 many more. Love you guys.
Thank you, Edward.
Yeah.
And if you guys doubt how much Edward is the one who stayed behind, when my folks sold the house in Brookline, half their stuff went with them to the new house. A third went down, or another quarter went down to the vineyard. And then the remaining quarter is here in my house. And about half of that is stuffed with Edward's name all over it. So right, come get your couch.
I love you, Pratt. I love you.
In terms of though, family and siblings and families raised together, I can't think of another family that, certainly for BJ and I, where we were more raised together from really before we were born than the Larsons. And Anika, who is my god sister, is our god sister. Would love to turn the microphone on over to her and her lovely gentleman. Oh, are you on mute?
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
My face is hurting from smiling. Am I the only one? Like it's good. I'm gonna be sore tomorrow. I have sore cheeks tomorrow from just the joy of this. All right, so I am here to represent all of the godchildren of Flash and Bennie, and I got to admit that my whole life I have felt a little bit guilty that I had Flash and Bennie as my godparents, because I have far and away the best godparents of any of my brothers and sisters. And I have 9 brothers and sisters, so that's actually a lot of competition. But I think all of my siblings would agree that hands down, I have won. All the other godchildren out there, you agree with me? I mean, we won, right? Like we clearly we won. In 46 years, Flash and Bennie have never once missed calling me on my birthday. They've never missed sending me wonderful gifts for my birthday and for Christmas. They have never missed congratulating me on my successes. As we all know, Flash and Bennie are 2 people who are never ones to miss a party. And looking back on my childhood, I feel like it wasn't a real Larson family function if Flash and Bennie weren't there. They were at every dinner party. They were at every backyard christening. And for sure, it wasn't a Larson family Christmas party if Flash wasn't singing 5 golden rings in our sing-along of the 12 days of Christmas. But most important to me, and I imagine this is true for all the other godchildren, whenever they came over to our house, they looked specifically at me. And when you're one of 10 kids, there's so much that you have to share, which is not a bad thing, but it is just the reality. And Flash and Bennie, of course, cared about all of my siblings, but they made a point to tune into me. And these 2 people who were such bright lights wanted to know what was going on in my life. And they wanted to know what I thought. And they wanted to offer me advice. And that mattered so much to me, and it made me feel so special. And in turn, I looked back at them, and their effect on me was profound. I'm sorry, you guys, I didn't know I was going to get this emotional. When I was reading in my bathroom earlier, I saw what accomplished professionals they were, and I wanted to be an accomplished person too. I saw how important it was to them to serve and to volunteer, fundraise, and to give back. And I have worked hard to do that in my life as well. And I saw how proud they were to be African American, and I saw how respected and admired they were, and that shaped my worldview. And now, as a married woman to my husband Freddie, and as a mother, I have Flash and Bennie to model for me great parenting, how to raise extraordinary and accomplished human beings, and how to commit to a strong and lasting marriage full of support and love and laughter. And when it came time for Freddie and me to choose godparents for our 2 little boys who were here before but couldn't behave, so they're gone now. They've been yanked. We had a pretty long discussion about finding a couple that we both knew who were just as remarkable, loving, delightful, wise, and cool, Flash and Bennie. Our boys have no godparents. Flash and Bennie, I love you. Congratulations and thank you. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Love you, Nika.
Pratt,
Yeah.
Aunt Amy wants to say a
Hold on.
Oh,
Yes, Aunt Amy.
honey.
The microphone is yours.
Oh Lord, well, look, look, I want to wish you all many more happy anniversaries. And I don't know whether Flash remembers this, but Mother was living at the time. He came to the house to see Bennie. And so Mother told him, you had the wrong house. And so he said, why do I have the wrong house? She said, you are a rabbi.
I do remember that.
That was, yeah, remember that.
You'd have to know my grandmother to appreciate that. That's our aunt who's, can you all hear me?
Mhm.
That's our aunt who's 99 years old. And I think a lot of people on this call know that you heard Sharon say that her mother died when we were very young, but our Aunt Amy is the one who helped raise us with our dad. So we just love her dearly. Thank you.
And
I saw Aunt Amy, I realized that Bennie had a chance as she got to be an older woman. She was going to be beautiful.
And Aunt Amy just last year allowed my dad to start eating off of the family china. So after 49 years, thank you, Aunt Amy. We have a quick video here. BJ, do you want to set this up? But before we do that, we're just going to do one last toast after the video. So if you don't have a drink, now's a good time to grab one.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Pratt. And actually, I'm speaking on behalf of my cousin, Amy, who really spent some time trying to figure out what's the perfect gift for my parents for their anniversary. Of course, my parents didn't want any gifts, but she really wanted to think hard about something special. And so one of her good friends wanted to sing a song to my parents. My parents got to meet this gentleman because he's one of their favorite movies that Amy knows. So I'm just gonna share the video quickly and you guys just enjoy while you drink.
I'm so in love with you. Whatever you want to do is all right with me. You make me feel so brand new. I wanna spend my whole life with you. Now, baby, since we've been together, loving you forever is all I need. Let me be the one you come running to. I never be untrue. So let's stay together, loving you whether times are good or bad, happy or sad. Why? Tell me, why do people break up? Oh, they turn around and make up. I just can't see. You never do that to me. Being around you is all I wanna see. So baby, let's stay together. I'm loving you whether times are good, bad, happy or sad, times are good or bad, happy or sad, times are good or bad, happy or sad. Oh, Bennie and Flash, let's stay together, together.
Here, 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 here.
Yeah.
I'm going to unmute myself here. Amy, you look fine. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, BJ. Excuse me. I am going to be very brief because I recognize that I am the only thing standing between you all and the guests of honor. But there are just a few thoughts that I want to share. Just some themes that I've heard over the evening. The first is what it means to be a Wiley, and whether you're by blood or whether you are an adopted Wiley. Watching Nicole being embarrassed by her father and her stories, that is honestly what being a Wiley is all about. Excuse me. But even more so, what being a Wiley is about is spending less time capturing moments and more time living and making memories, not measuring the work, even though you work incredibly hard, in the money that you make or the size of your house, but in the lives that you impact, the bonds that you create, the love that you make. There are a lot of reasons why we heard tonight that were intentional for why our folks have lasted 50 years together, but also want to recognize that some of it is luck. A lot of this is luck. There were times where we weren't certain that certain family members were going to make it through. But for the grace of God, everybody is still here, everybody is still healthy, and everybody is still happy. And being able to celebrate 50 years is as much a testament to endurance and persistence and luck as it is to love. Even though the 83 people who were on this call, some of whom had to drop off a few minutes ago, each and every one of them are here because of love. And so in the name of love, and in the name of persistence, in the name of endurance, to Flash and Bennie.
Salute, salute.
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 And with that, Mom and Dad, it's yours.
I'll say something quickly. I am very conscious of time, but I do want to first thank everybody for coming out for this occasion. Flash and I were saying this morning that it's hard to believe, you know, when you get married, you'd say, oh, we want to grow old together, but you never really think about being old. And you know, you talk about your 50th, your golden anniversary, and when you're in your 20s, you can't even imagine being 50, let alone being married 50 years. So it's, you know, it's kind of shocking, but I can't think of a better way to celebrate it than with everybody that's been on this call. Everybody, all those 80 people that have been on this call have touched our lives in so many ways. And so many of you have been part of almost most of these 50 years. I mean, a lot of people were there from 50 years ago, but a lot from 40 years ago and 45 years ago. And we can't tell you how much we value you. And I know there are a lot of cities represented, and I'm not going to really go through that now. I want to thank all the people who spoke. You know how dear you are to each and every one of us, to the two of us, and we love you so much. And I want to thank Pratt and BJ. I think anybody that knows us, and that's everybody on this call, that they are our greatest joy and our greatest pride and our greatest sense of job well done. They're just not only accomplished professionals, but they're such good people. We're so proud of them as the people they are. And they've selected life partners who are also great people, BJ and Les. And I know Les's parents were on the call. I don't know if they still are. And Pratt and Jesse. And I think Jesse's parents are on the call. It makes us feel so good that they have such good people in their lives. I would like to say to Flash, thank you for being you. I heard somebody say earlier that, you know, kind of behind all that flash is a lot of substance and thoughtfulness and kindness, and that's so true. And he makes you laugh, and I think that's such an important ingredient. And I laugh at what he says, and that's an important ingredient to him. And I do want to say to him that he's always given me both the freedom and the support to do what I wanted to do and what was important to me. And I think that's a gift. And I just want to tell him I appreciate it and I love him very much.
I'm going to be very brief. I'm so very touched by all of you all coming out and about the things that some of you have said, and some of the ones of you that haven't been able to talk. Maybe you'll send us a little note and everything, but we really appreciate our time with you, who have helped make the 50 years that we have spent together such a wonderful, enriching life for us. And we want to do more and want to enjoy you all more. So stay safe and healthy. Joy and peace. Thank you.
Wish we could be together and hug you. I miss hugs so much, but at least we're together by Zoom. Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Flash and Benny, 50 years.
Cheers, Benny.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Benny. Congratulations.
Bye-bye. Congratulations, guys.
You love
50
you.
years.
Happy
Yeah, happy anniversary. We love you very much.
Happy anniversary.
50 more years.
You're the best.
Yeah, 50 more.
Much love.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Well done, Pratt and BJ.
Well done.
Great.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you, Pratt and BJ.
We're here with you.
Love you guys.
Bye-bye, honey.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Congratulations.
Happy anniversary.
Love you. How do you say bye-bye?
Bye.
Bye.
Heartbeat.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, take care.
See you in person.
Flash, don't touch my Woodford.
Bye, Pratt.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good job.
Kelly, you look good.
Well, are you ready to go?
This was wonderful.
Finley.
Thank you.
It was
Happy anniversary.
Dwayne
Bye-bye.
Jackson.
Amen. Good seeing you
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.
Guys.
Wonderful. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
And
Bye.
Bernie.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, Pratt and BJ.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Guys.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Great job. Pratt.
Great job, Brett and BJ.
Bye.
Congratulations, Pratt.
Bye. We're leaving.
Bye. Nobody could hear me.
We hear you.
Hey, Kathy.
Oh, okay. Oh, Ken, so sorry you had to go to a meeting, but bye. Congratulations.
Good seeing you.
Good seeing everyone. Love you. Love you. Bye-bye.
Cameron Kinder is looking awfully old over there.
People talking. Are you there?
Bless his mom.
Hey, Pratt, what happens if we just refuse to leave?
That's why I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see who's
Yeah.
the last to leave, and then they get the prize.
And then there were
Yeah.
Flash and Benny have left, though, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't think Mom meant to leave.
Oh, well, they can get back in. BJ, you want to let her know that she can get back in?
Yeah.
Anika, that was great.
Was it?
Yeah.
When you
It
can't
was.
hear your audience. and
Yeah.
You guys, Benny, BJ, Pratt, you guys did a fabulous job.
They did.
Well, you guys were fantastic.
Bye-bye all.
Awesome, as they say.
Yeah.
Hi.
And you picked the right people to speak.
Mom.
Hey, Pratt and BJ.
Nice job, you guys.
Love you guys. Oh, there's the
Hey,
hall
Pratt.
inside.
BJ and Pratt. Are you there?
Yes.
This is Ray Robinson. I'm a little late. I'm sorry.
No
Ray, we've been waiting. We haven't even started the program. We were waiting for you to show up.
Oh, man.
Mom who just called.
Oh, people are